Throwing it up at the rim. Red at the horn. Got it! Our final here. Michigan 58, Penn State 57.
Thanks to the Michigan men's basketball Twitter feed for that audio. Michigan getting that W last night in Happy Valley, one that they had to have, and they come away with that 1-point victory. Welcome in. We're going to talk some Michigan hoops coming up. This is the Maize and Blue Review. We're here every weekday at 1 o'clock talking about the latest in Michigan sports, football, basketball, recruiting, all of that. And all of that's ahead today. A new defensive coordinator to talk about that victory last night, what lies ahead here for the Wolverines. Busy week for Juwan Howard and company. We've got some name, image, and likeness breaking news that we're going to get to. Also, the Michigan recruiting spotlight. We got a video that we're going to go through about a commitment that the Wolverines have from the Sunshine State. And I also have, in the memorabilia minute, some Super Bowl memorabilia to get to. So all of that is ahead. If you're watching here on YouTube, you remember we have the podcast that's up and running. If you're watching on via Facebook or YouTube, remember you can leave a message, and I get to that through at some point during the show. If it's something that I'm talking about right then and I see it, boom, put it right up. So you can be a part of this as we move ahead here. You know, we like the feedback. We like you to get involved. So go ahead at any point. You got a question about Michigan sports. That's what we're here to discuss. And well, let's start with this new defensive coordinator. You know, you think about here's Wednesday. We do remember what happened last Wednesday. It's only been 1 week, you know, since Jim Harbaugh. At this time last week, if you know you were pinning me down and you're like, is Jim Harbaugh going to Minnesota? Is he coming back to Michigan? You know, at this time last week, I would have thought Harbaugh was going to the purple and yellow, and that he was going to be a Viking. Oh, we know that's not what happened. We do know that Michigan, since then, has lost one of its coordinators. So they're looking for an offensive coordinator, looking for a defensive coordinator. They look like they've got all of that, at least the coordinators, sorted out. And that's where we'll start with Michigan, because this is the guy right there, Jesse Minter. That's your new defensive coordinator, Michigan fans. Jesse Minter comes to Michigan via Vanderbilt. You see his shirt right there from Vandy as the defensive coordinator. Going to be 38 years old, Minter, in May. So he's not as young as Mike McDonald, who got the job last year when he was 33. But, you know, he's got some ties to McDonald, to the Ravens, to a couple people on this, the Michigan staff. We'll go through it here as we talk about the new DC, Jesse Minter here. You know, he started out, you can see his playing career at Mount St. Joseph. That is in Cincinnati. So played his college football at Mount St. Joseph in Cincinnati as a wide receiver. But Ohio, the important part there, having any connections in Ohio, always sounds like a good thing to me. Then he went on to Notre Dame, where Michigan's new defensive line coach, Mike Elston, he was there at the same time. On to Cincinnati when Brian Kelly was the head coach of the Bearcats at U of C. And then one of the coaches there went down to Indiana State. Minter went along with him there. He had a lot of success. A pretty quick move up here from linebacker coach to defensive coordinator at Indiana State, then on to Georgia State, where he was the DC for a few years, and then to the Ravens as a defensive assistant, and then an assistant defensive backs coach, and then a defensive backs coach, and then, on to Vandy, where he was last year as a defensive coordinator. One thing you could say, Mike McDonald last year, the first thing that comes up when you think about this is, hey, what are your thoughts on the new defensive coordinator, and I would say that I have less reservations about Minter because of his experience than I did. I had more with Mike McDonald last year. Great idea. Going after a young hotshot analytics guy from the NFL, and putting him in charge. That all sounded good, last year. But the thing is that he had never coordinated defense. Talking about McDonald, so who knows? What he was going to be. Who knew? And in the end, it ended up working out really well for McDonald. But I think that Minter, I think this is a pretty good hire. Just looking at his resume here and being 38 years old and having the experience already at Indiana State and Georgia State and Vanderbilt, 3 different spots, being a defensive coordinator, one being in the SEC last year, didn't have great success against all those SEC offenses. But look, he was dealing with, Vanderbilt, where, the kind of talent that you're getting at Vandy, and you got to stack it up against, the Floridas, the Alabamas, and all of that. But I would imagine that's a pretty good experience, coming in as a defensive coordinator. So we do see Michael jumping in saying we hope that the new defensive coordinator, Jesse Minter, will do well, and he welcomes him in. You know what? He's got the resume, and the resume. He's got the experience as a coordinator, and those are the things you like. And he also would be familiar with McDonald and his time in Baltimore. So how much different the defense can be this year in terms of scheme. Whether it's going to be 3-4 matchup, the different things. I don't know about seamless transition. It doesn't seem like you're going to have to, come up with, I don't know, major differences here. The major thing is going to be when it comes down to Minter, Michael, is that, he's working with substantially less known commodities as you head into the year. Offensive side, Michigan's, ready to go. Defensive side, while they may be good, when anybody talked about the Michigan defense this year, the first thing they were talking about was Hutchinson and Ajabo, and those 2 guys are going to go in the draft next year. Trevor saying, I don't know why, but I have a good feeling about this dude. Well, you know what? I think you should have a good feeling about Michigan football. The way that if you told me last week at this time that you didn't have a good feeling about Michigan football because you thought Harbaugh was going, that's understandable. But you got the coach back, and then when they lost Gaddis, it was like, wow, now they got to replace 2 coordinators, and the head coach. This is the fallout here. So you say, well, what's he going to do? And you bring in Minter here, and because he's had the experience here, I think he'll have every chance to succeed. And I'll probably say this a million times before September 3rd when Michigan opens up against Colorado State, is that he doesn't have a murderer's row, that he doesn't have to be on top of his game one with this with his defense and all the different young guys that he's going to have to play. Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, and Maryland is extremely manageable, coming in as a new defensive coordinator. So, you should feel pretty good about that. So just showing where Minter has been and, where he's at right now. A couple of things that jumped out to me, and this is kind of small on the screen. Let's see if I can get that a little bit bigger. I think the biggest is probably, right here. Minter, this is taken from the Ravens site when he was the defensive backs coach under John Harbaugh. There, you see the talent that he had. 3 Pro Bowl defenders: Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, and Earl Thomas. Anything about these guys here? I mean, not just a crazy skill set when you're talking about Humphrey, Peters, and Thomas, but some big time personalities as well. You get Marcus Peters right. Marcus Peters is one of the most talented football players that's ever played the game, but he's also had a lot of different issues as well. Not all, just talking about on the field there, and to get him playing the way he did, and Earl Thomas kind of the same thing. So getting those guys rowing in the right direction, I would feel pretty good about that as, somebody that was the defensive backs coach and had all that talent and just got them out there and, and had them performing. And, the defense, and even though Lamar Jackson, everybody talks about Baltimore, I do the same thing. The only thing I talk about is, is Lamar Jackson. Maybe I talk about, Mark Andrews, their tight end, but defensively, while Minter was there, allowed the NFL's third fewest points, under 18 a game, fourth fewest net yards, right at just over 300 yards per game. So that looks pretty good on the resume. So does this, where you look through Minter's bio here, named when he was down there at Georgia State, named the Sun Belt Conference's top recruiter. And then you see it again down here in 2015, was a Broyles nominee. That's what Josh Gaddis won this year, given to the best assistant coach in college football. Also named the Sun Belt's top recruiter. Now, there you go. I mean, so can he recruit? Oh, so is it Minter was named Sun Belt's top recruiter, and then it looked like maybe a two-time honoree of being named that conference's top recruiter. Not bad. I like that. I mean, why wouldn't you like that? So what it looks like, at least what I've been able to determine here, Michigan's defensive staff with Minter up top as the defensive coordinator, Steve Clinksdale, who came in last year when Mo Lindquist took the Buffalo job after spring. Klink will be the co-defensive coordinator along with Minter. George Hilo will stay at linebackers coach. Elston comes in. He's going to handle the defensive line. And the speculation here is that Jay Harbaugh, who is working with tight ends and special teams, will flip over to the defensive side and work with the safeties. But, Minter can show him the way and guide him along because it appears to be his specialty as well. But that's what it looks like on the defensive side of the ball there for Michigan. So that's looking pretty good, as that looks like it is rounded into shape. So when somebody asks you, hey, what do you think about the Michigan hires on the defensive side of the ball? I think you should feel pretty good about, Minter comes in with a solid resume, good experience, some pro experience, got familiarity with Elston, has some familiarity with McDonald. And so however he decides to run his defense here, it should be, the part where you have the manageable schedule, and he's going to have a lot of young guys. The offense, it didn't matter who the defensive coordinator. I mean, you can bring in Brent Venables to Michigan this year and would be saying the same thing. Like Venables, he's going to coach these guys up and everything, but you know what? He's going to have. You can bring Bill Belichick in to run this Michigan defense, and Bill Belichick was going to have a little bit of a transition period because of the two deep and just the players that Michigan lost here. So, but the good news is they have time to be able to get and develop the guys and have it in place. And this is always, as we do talk about the 2022 season for Michigan football, it is going to have to be carried by the offense. And what you're hoping is that Michigan has the best offense in the Big Ten, one of the best offenses in the country, and it's explosive, and it can pick up, for any defensive efficiencies. And the idea here is outscoring your opponent and being able to put up touchdowns and being able to run the table, getting to Ohio State, playing for a championship. That's how I feel today, when it comes down to Michigan football. And I don't think there's any reason besides that it's difficult to do. I think the off-season optimism, which could have been down, understandably, last week at this time. I think, sitting here today and thinking about things positively, that's where I'm at. So we'll see how it unfolds in the days and weeks ahead. But right now, I'm feeling pretty good about Michigan football and about this hire on the defensive side. And offensively, it looks like I'll get to more of this tomorrow. But offensively, looks like a promotion from in the staff to get things going and taking somebody on the defensive side and send them over to the offense. We'll look at the offensive side of the ball tomorrow when it comes down to the coaches and see if everything's official there or not. Now we get to a couple other things ahead here. Let me first check the feedback. There's always something brewing here. Here's Trevor. He's saying, "Hey, what's up? Thanks for the shout out there, Trev." Mike saying, "What about Mike Hart on the team?" Mike Hart is still here. As far as I know, I know there were some stories about that. Hart could be looking at the NFL. As it stands right now at 116, Hart is still with Michigan as their running backs coach and I think associate head coach. But we'll get to more on Hart tomorrow when we look at the rest of that offensive staff. Michael, we'll talk about that. Let's ahead here. I've got some video on the Michigan recruiting spotlight, some Super Bowl stuff to get to in the memorabilia minute with a program from the Super Bowl and a story to go along with it. Some breaking name, image, and likeness news this afternoon that you'll be interested in if you're a sports fan, specifically if you're a Michigan fan, and heck, you're watching Amazing Blue Review. I would think you would be a Michigan fan. But if you're not, say hello to anybody else out there. Hey, what's going on? If you're not a Michigan fan, I'd be interested to hear from you as well. All right, the basketball team last week, they were starting out a game with their game last night. They were going to play 3 games in 5 days. So it's a very important week for Juwan Howard and company, who are not even on the NCAA tournament bubble right now. They're on not the first 4 out or the next 4 out. They're also in consideration for being the first 4 out bubble, if there is such a thing. There's not, but that's where they are. That's where they are. They had to have the victory last night, and throughout the game in the first half, it looked like Michigan was going to get beat. I mean, they weren't playing defense. Didn't have a lot going on offense. Penn State was blistering the nets, the field goal percentage. Michigan was turning it over. They're down 11 points with a couple minutes to play till half, and it's like, you know what? I'm getting close to pulling out the fork and going ahead and jabbing it in there. But they hit a few buckets. They closed the half on an 11-0 run, tied things up at 34. And, that's a pretty big deal, for what Michigan was able to do there. Let's see if I can put that up there. Let's add this. We're on to basketball here. So Michigan wins at 58-57. Hopefully you didn't bet Wolverines -2. If you did bet them, it was just on the money line. I was considering, thinking about, before I looked at the line, I thought, what would it be? About 2.5, 3. Michigan was the favorite. So when it was 2, I was like, ooh, maybe I would get on Michigan there, but maybe I would bet Penn State on the money line. But I didn't do any of it because I thought, you know what? I don't really trust either of these teams. And in the end, it was this.
Throwing it up at the rim.
ESPN2 here.
At the horn. Got it. Our final here.
Right at
Michigan
the horn.
58. Penn State 57.
Yeah, so, if you bet that game, that was an important sequence there right at the end. Penn State +2. Heartbreaker. You bet Michigan in that game. But, things that I would point out here, it's always, I can sit around and, be like, oh my gosh, being down 11 to Penn State and, hanging on for the victory, getting a win. At this point, if you said, it's close to being in a situation, and I thought last night was a must win. So it's about where you're just surviving and advancing at this point. So they get the win. No, it was not pretty. It doesn't make me feel great or even good about their chances against Purdue and Ohio State, but it's better than the alternative of them feeling like the season was over, last night. And now they got Purdue. They just played on Saturday, and they did a decent job against Purdue, but did I ever feel like they were going to beat Purdue this past Saturday? I didn't, even though they did some nice things. But, I saw people last night criticizing Hunter Dickinson, who had, 19 and 15 because of, being 6 of 20 from the field and thinking that Hunter, you needed to dominate more. And, there could be a little bit of truth to that, but Michigan's far from Hunter Dickinson is the least of Michigan's problems. In fact, he's the best thing they've got going. So yeah, and you go back to Saturday, and Dickinson had a 3 late, and then also was trying to corral a pass from Devontae Jones that you could make the case that he should have had, and wasn't able to make the plays down the stretch there for U of M when they were down at Purdue on Saturday. Yeah, there's some truth to that, but you still have to go to him. He's their number one option on offense. And the hard part here, which is the biggest factor with this team, is they don't have a player that can go and just get their own shot, like an Ivy. Even last night, for Penn State, their guard that they bring off the bench, Sessoms, he can take anybody off the dribble and get to the hole. Michigan doesn't have anybody like that. Devontae Jones, I guess, would be their best, but handing it to Devontae Jones and say, go get us a bucket is not something that I feel real comfortable, with. But, that's me. Trevor weighing in, saying he was disappointed with Eli Brooks's play and leadership. I don't know what it is, but Eli looks terrible. Well, last night he didn't, Trevor. Eli was good last night. He hit a bucket late from the elbow and then hit 4 free throws down the stretch, made them all. And he was pretty good for Michigan. There's been some other games here, but I know what you're saying overall. Like, Eli Brooks is a fantastic complementary player, really good defensively. And if you have to worry about a point guard, you got to worry about guys up front, and he can just pick and choose getting in there and being like your third or fourth scorer like he was last year. Then, he's fantastic. Meanwhile, he's been thrust into a situation where he has had to be, the number one focus of the backcourt. And you can see, that's just a little bit too much. And, that's part of the issue here with Michigan. They needed somebody else, to take that focus away. And you thought that was going to be Devontae Jones. You thought maybe, that could have been Frankie Collins. You thought that certainly Caleb Houston was going to be able to alleviate some of that. And, that would take the pressure off of Eli Brooks, but, that's not the case. I would put Brooks right behind Dickinson as Michigan's, that's the least of their problems. Because you know what? If we're talking about what's the biggest problem here is that, Caleb Houston needs to be a gunner, a scorer, a volume shooter, and he needs to be able to get Michigan points. And the thing that we have seen now, we have watched Michigan play, 21 games. Caleb Houston has nice size, and he can do okay shooting sometimes, but he's a set shooter. You can't throw the ball to Caleb Houston and say, go get us one. And he's been inconsistent, and he has struggled. I know he has said that, it's not a confidence thing, but look, I mean, that's good in a way that he's not sitting over there saying, yeah, I lost my confidence. But I mean, you could even see it last night. Like, Hunter Dickinson threw up an air ball. I think Brooks threw up an air ball, or maybe it was Devontae Jones, Caleb Houston. Caleb Houston must lead the country in air balls. And if there was a metric for how badly 3-pointers were missed this year, I would say that Caleb Houston would probably lead the country, because no other player would be allowed to shoot that much and miss that badly. But, that really sounds like an indictment on him. That's when you're a top 10 guy, coming in, the expectation was, that he was going to be, all of that. And, the best case scenario with Houston here is that he can get some consistency, find some consistency, and then, come back next year and be able to put all that together and be a big time contributor on a team that's going to go to the tournament or even more, maybe take a run at a Big Ten championship. But, this year's been a disappointment, and, you never know how things go when guys are coming in and, the rankings, have him as a top 10 guy, and he thinks about, well, I'm going to the draft and everything. Oh, who knows? where that's going to play out and where his head is at. But, game wise, and, he wouldn't be anywhere close to, I wouldn't think, being somebody who would be selected in the first round. But, that's down the road a little bit, because Michigan technically still does have a chance here in the regular season with these 9 games. The good news is, if you're looking at it here on the screen, is that I put some good news, bad news here. And the good news is that 6 of their 9 remaining games are at home, including Thursday against Purdue, and then Saturday as well. Purdue ranked number 3 in the country. Ohio State ranked number 16. Like, Michigan needs to win those games. They've got 9 games to play. They can't lose too many more games here when you start taking a look at it. Now, they can't afford to lose more than 3, certainly 4 games. They lose 4 games, and we're sitting here on Selection Sunday, which is what? Take a look at it. Big Ten tournament, Michigan and Ohio State the 6th. So Selection Sunday is the 13th of March. You tell me right now that Michigan loses 4 or more games, I can tell you that you're not going to have a lot of fun on Selection Sunday sitting around. You need 3, and of course it depends on who you beat and who you don't, and all of that. But 12-9, 6-5 in the conference with 9 games to play. So you can start subtracting 3 or 4 from 9, and you see how many wins that they need. You got to be 4 games with your overall record. You got to be 4 games above 500 even to be considered. So obviously with that, they can't lose 4 more, because then they would have to win the Big Ten tournament if they wanted to get in. Here's DN 1001. The development of all the freshmen this year has been disappointing. Howard recruits better than Beeline, but he doesn't teach the game better. Well, I see what you're saying there. In just 1 year, I mean, do we want to make do we want to look back at all 3 years here? Because last year it was a pretty good recruiting class, and Hunter Dickinson was fantastic. And you watch enough college basketball, and you see the teams that do really well in recruiting. A team like Kentucky, of course, North Carolina and Duke. But even like Duke and Kentucky, sometimes they bring in these classes that you're like, oh my gosh, this is like the greatest class of all time. And those guys get out there, and it just doesn't happen. Some of the freshmen come in and are awesome right away. But yeah, the development, I agree that the development of all the freshmen this year has overall been disappointing. Kobe Buffkin, defensively last night, didn't like that. I think you get a break when you're talking about the point guard position with Frankie Collins. So there's a lot to like about Frankie Collins. I mean, he's a fun player to watch. He's a Jet. He needs to, of course, work on his outside shot, but I haven't given up. I wouldn't give up on any of these guys. I think the thing is that Moussa Diabate and Caleb Houston were so highly touted, 5 stars, top 10, top 25 guys, that you're thinking that they're going to be one and done. And they, you're hoping that if they're going to be a one and done, that they really contribute to the team. And, it's, who doesn't like Diabate? But, if he goes to the pros, how much did he really contribute? And, Houston, so much was being asked for, from him. And so far, overall, he's been the biggest disappointment of all those guys because of that ranking. But, this is part of the deal when you go through it. But I understand, what you're saying there about the development. Beeline's a better coach. He had like 30 years coaching experience. Howard, none. Well, remember this about Beeline. And, it's not like I'm sitting here arguing that point. But John Beeline, when he went the first time that he took Michigan to the national championship game, he thought, oh, man, Michigan's going to be able to pick and choose in recruiting. And it's not like they made the tournament every year that John Beeline was here, even after making the championship game. And it was like, really? You thought that, Beeline could even do a little bit better there. And it wasn't all like Beeline just got here and when he first arrived, it was like, hey, Dr. Strange Hoops coming in, just shooting threes. What's going on here? And, then he had the success of getting him to the championship game, and everybody's like, whoa, this guy's great. But then it looked like it was just going to be a maybe a one-off for him. And, the recruiting wasn't there, and he was still pulling guys from New Hampshire and, wherever else. And you're thinking, really, but of course he proved himself. And, Jawan's first 2 years, not only were passing grades, but, last year was one of the most entertaining years. I'd give him an A, and I'd give him an A minus if I was putting, a grade to his first 2 seasons. This year, right now I'd put it probably, C minus, but he's got games to play, still 9 games to play to really help himself out there. So what do you say overall after 3 years if you go A minus, A, where you're sitting here at a C minus? I mean, you start saying, hey, next year's going to be an important year. That's what you say. Did I get all that comments in there? I think I have. Trevor saying Caleb and Diabate will not get drafted if they go pro next year. LOL. Well, you know what, Trevor? I understand what you're saying there, but you look at, it only takes one team. I mean, this is what you always say. Based on what you have seen, no. You know what? No. But you know what the one thing is? Hunter Dickinson, he hasn't showed up in anybody. You look at top 50, top 100 players that are going to be drafted. You only have, 30 spots in the first round and 30 in the second. So you got to be in the top 60 if you're going to get drafted at all. And you don't see Hunter Dickinson anywhere. But you know who you do see still? And these things are updated every, if not every day, certainly every week. You see Diabate showing up in some of these in a top 50. And you still see Houston showing up in the top 30. This was even after some of his, and he's played better. Now, I know what you're saying. Why would any team do that? Well, teams are just looking for young talent that they're looking for ceiling, and that's what they draft on. So that's what's going on. Trevor saying Hunter needs to stay another year or so. Well, it depends. You know what? If he's not going to be, like, if I was, I thought him developing the outside shot was, a fine thing, but really, it was like, hey, Hunter Dickinson's a guy that's going to play down on the post. That's where he's going to make his money. That's where, Michigan needs him and all that. But, just these last 2 or 3 games, and, if he would have hit one of those threes against Purdue late, I'd have been like, wow, man, this is really, this guy's the real deal from outside. Is he the real deal from outside yet? He's expanded his game. I'm willing to go that far. But here's the thing. If he goes undrafted, he's going to play in the NBA. Like, you watch enough NBA and you see the guys that the teams are bringing off the bench. Yeah, they're bringing 6'10", 6'11", 7-footers out there. And the way Dickinson's jumped from his freshman to sophomore season, a team's going to pick him up and he's playing. Now, yeah, does he need to work on, lateral quickness and things like that? Yeah, I mean, if he had all of that, you would be talking about him as a first rounder, and you would be talking about, maybe even in the lottery. But, he's going to play in the NBA. I don't think anybody should doubt that. Oh, there you go. That's just, when he wants to go. That's where you get the name, image, and likeness, and we're going to get to coming up, is that could Hunter Dickinson make enough at Michigan here, and would it behoove Michigan? It's not like, when it comes down to name, image, and likeness, sometimes you worry about, well, what if you go and give $1 million to some recruit, and he comes in, and then he's like, I'm transferring. I'm just going to the next highest bidder, and then he's out. With Dickinson, coming back for an additional year, that name, image, and likeness, if you could get him enough money, and he's pretty sure he's not going to be picked in the first round, which is, guaranteed for 3 years, you can get him, if you can get him close to 7 figures. I think that, the consideration for him staying around, and then as a college player, he's tremendous. So, yeah, I think that, to me, I'm zeroing in on Dickinson and that NLI. D saying Hunter's playing like he's ready, still needs to work on his right hand. Yeah. I mean, like, probably not going to get drafted, but he's going to play in the NBA. But can Michigan do something with that? And speaking of the NIL, we do have something to get to there. Let's do that right Now, name, image, and likeness, or as some people like to call it, now it's legal, is I found some news here today for Michigan. People are always like, well, what's Michigan doing with name, image, and likeness? When's Michigan going to get out there? I saw, on Monday that Michigan State had signed an NFT deal with a memorabilia company and with another 4 or 5 schools. And it's like, okay, Michigan, anytime, you can jump in there. There was some positive news here for Michigan and name, image, and likeness. And we go here. Here's Kurt Svoboda, Michigan Associate Athletic Director, Communications, PR. Here's his Twitter feed from today. Let's just get down here. A nice pinned tweet of his kids singing a song. Okay, here's the one we want. This tweet right here from a couple hours ago. It took less than 35 minutes from a public launch before onboarding our first new business to the Victor's Exchange. Several longtime nil partners already preloaded in the system. And he's got a hashtag NIL at INFLCR. And that's what it's about. And you can say, well, what's that? Well, let's get down there a little bit further here. He's got a picture. Welcome to the family. There they are. INFLCR. And Svoboda is explaining that here through our partnership with INFLCR. Can they come up with a better acronym? I think I'm supposed to remember that. Michigan has opened its Victor's Exchange program to all businesses to expand its ongoing name, image, and likeness program for the Go Blue student athletes. Here are the details. Well, let's see if I get another picture there of what it says. No, we don't got a picture there. Let's look at what actually is INF. Here they are. You can't spell INFLCR without nil. Industry-leading software serving over 3,500 collegiate and professional sports teams used to grow their brand and manage their name, image, and likeness. All right. I got some software here. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see what their little presentation here. See if we can pick up anything. 2 minutes. There's their guy, Jim Cavalier, is their president. Hey, Jim, how about tightening up that acronym and calling it something else? I don't know. That's my first one. He's got the Michigan Victor's Exchange off and running. It's here. Hey, anything, Michigan, this might be common, and if I look back in a week, maybe in a month or something, I'm looking back at INFLCR and saying, oh yeah, these guys, this is a positive. I know I'm sounding like negative because I'm struggling to get through the acronym, but it's and any NIL stuff and putting it together the way that Michigan has gone about this. This is not something that they were quick or first one in. They have been very measured on how they do things. And again, like I said before, people are always like, get involved in name, image, and likeness. Maybe Michigan was worried about, hey, we go out there and give a quarterback $500,000 or figure out name, image, and likeness and getting him a 6-figure deal. It comes in here with the idea of, if I don't like it, I'm going to hit the portal and, I'm going to the next highest bidder. I get 2 chances. I get my first signing bonus and then I'm off to get my second signing bonus. That could be what's scaring teams off to come on and say, yeah, look at our name, image, and likeness and what we have. And maybe that's what'll happen to somewhere like Texas A&M. They came in and, bought and NLI'd all these players that are coming in. Maybe half of these guys are going to use they don't like the situation, or they already got people saying, hey, the second time you get in, because you get that one-time transfer, that second bonus is the one that you want to get people involved with. Could be. But with this one right here, we'll see how this plays out. It's just something for people to keep an eye on. INFLCR. Inflicker? Yeah, there you go. Software service, local exchange. They're going to enhance the athletes' NIL opportunities. It's like one of these things. You're a business. You just get in there, kind of like a portal, and you can pick and choose, and you can say, "Hey, I want to give, Frankie Collins, $5,000 to use his name, image, and likeness, for our pizza bottle, something like that." So there it is. When it comes down to the name, image, and likeness. All right, let's get to the Michigan recruiting spotlight. And for that, we'll stay with some video here. We got some good stuff. And we go to, let's see if I can bring it up here in short time. Michigan has a linebacker that's committed to next year, Raylan Wilson. He is a linebacker out of Tallahassee, Florida. And that's what we're on to next. I watched the first minute of his junior highlights, and I'm like, I got to show the people this. This stuff's pretty good. Pretty good stuff here from Raylan Wilson. Got to watch some of these highlights here. So here's the picture of the young man. See if I can make it bigger. So all of this, you see him, a big rangy guy, but he's playing middle linebacker. He chases the quarterback down here, just tears him to the ground. I'm like, all right, that caught my attention. The first 3 or 4 plays catch my attention. Here he is as a punt returner, and you get a little idea of his athleticism here. He breaks a tackle and now cuts it back and takes it to the breaks another tackle at the 10, and he's into the end zone. Touchdown. How about that? Now, that's a hell of a play. This one here, and this might be the one where he throws his shoulder shimmy into somebody, and I was like, okay. Here's him getting after the quarterback. You like being able to rush the QB, maybe a little David Ajabo in him there. But here's the one. This is the final one. He comes in. He just gets down the line here and blows this guy up with a little boom. That's an eraser. That is the Michigan recruiting spotlight. That right there is Raylan Wilson, Michigan linebacker. I was impressed. I mean, how could you not be impressed with that video right there? It is impressive. Where did I go? There I am. All right, you can sit around watching the Raylan Wilson video for the rest of the show. All right, that finally gets us to the memorabilia minute. The memorabilia minute, take 1 minute, pull some kind of memorabilia out, whether it's going to be an NFT, whether it's going to be actual hard copy of something. I've spent most of my life in Michigan. That means, the Lions are my team, and they're one of the teams that have never been to a Super Bowl. So it's one of those things. It's like, how can you be this gigantic fan of the Super Bowl and, be a Lions fan? I get it. Well, back in the day, I don't have much Super Bowl memorabilia. Come to find out, as a Lions fan, what am I going to get? But I did come up with a Super Bowl program a long time ago. And why did I get this Super Bowl? If you look really close, I lived in England for a couple of years ago. You see that it cost £3.75 to get this Super Bowl program. It's in pretty good condition. And Super Bowl XXV, that's a pretty easy one, 25. But it ends up being a great Super Bowl, one of the most memorable Super Bowl. It does have a pretty cool fold out. Like if I ever wanted to put this in some kind of frame, it's not worth anything. I mean, I looked online, somebody was selling one. Mine's in better condition, but somebody was selling it for like $7. I'm like, what do I do? Try to get $10 for a Super Bowl official program, and so this particular program, though, it was the Bills Giants. Otis Anderson was the MVP. Jim Kelly and the Buffalo Bills, this was their best chance to win the Super Bowl. And Scott Norwood had a 47-yard field goal that went wide right. And the Giants won it 20-19. But, this game, was known for the Norwood and only being the 1 point. But if you're a Giants fan, there's nothing on here to indicate it's just it's a nice cover, but it's nothing like that you would say, oh, Giants. And if you're a Bills fan, same thing. But, if you're a Bills fan, do you really want the Scott Norwood Super Bowl program? Probably not. I mean, you just need to be like some Uber collector of Super Bowl merchandise that, we're looking for one of these programs. I don't think this is it, but that's it. It is, if it was in just impeccable when I grabbed it, I looked and said, "What's this in really good shape?" But come to find out, it's not in the greatest shape. A little bit of corner action there, but it's also, kind of old, that book. So pretty pristine shape. That gets me to a Super Bowl 56 LVI coming up this Sunday. And speaking of being a Lions fan, I'll tell you about what I have been able to do here as a Lions fan. Looking forward to this game on Sunday. I know a lot of people, thinking about the quarterback for the Rams and the fandom and everything else. We will get to that. It'll also be game day, Michigan Purdue, so we'll be back on that. Let's see. Last few items here on the feedback. Wilson needs to be a Wolverine. He is. If somebody has a program, ticket examples from the previous 24 Super Bowls, I like it. All the memorabilia. I got a lot of things downstairs. They're just sitting down there. When I'm gone, I think people will look through it and just be like, there'll be a couple of things that'll be valuable in there. Be a lot of things. What will happen to this when I'm gone? Hey, Super Bowl program. Worth anything? Anybody want it? Give it away? Trash it? Recycle? At least maybe. Hopefully it'll get recycled. That's what I have to say. Can't send it to any Giants. I guess the Giant fan would be the one. But, the couple Giant fans that I know, I don't want to send them anything. So that'll do it. Thanks for watching. We'll be here tomorrow. 2 times. We'll have the afternoon live show and then beyond after the Michigan-Purdue game tomorrow night. So until then, thanks for watching and or listening.